Good afternoon. My name is Ben Roll. I'm an application engineer here at Ally PLM Solutions. I want to welcome all of you to today's session of our Lunch Bytes series. In today's session, we're going to go over plastic features in Solid Edge. For those of you that don't know, we hold these Lunch Bytes sessions once a month. They're designed to explore the capabilities and features inside of Solid Edge that are oftentimes overlooked. We want these sessions to be informative and useful for you guys, so if you have any questions or suggestions for future topics that you would like covered, just go ahead and send them to us in an email, and we'll see what we can do about getting those covered in the future. In today's session, like I said, we're going to cover plastic features. So first we'll look at the mounting boss feature, and we'll look at rib, thin wall, vent, and web networks. So we'll go ahead and switch over to Solid Edge. So like I said, the first thing we're going to cover is the mounting boss feature. So to get to the mounting boss, we go into our thin wall drop-down, and you'll see the mounting boss down there. Now the mounting boss is only available in the ordered environment, and it's for, if you have two parts where you need to run a screw through to screw into two different parts, but you don't have a whole lot of material. So by default, when you start the mounting boss command, it's going to tell you to pick a parallel plane, and basically what that parallel plane is going to do is define the height of that boss. So for this, we'll pick our parallel plane off of our XY reference plane, and we'll go ahead and set it to 8 millimeters. We'll accept that, and now it'll bring us into where we can place our mounting boss. What we want to do is go into the mounting boss options, and here you'll see you have a bunch of different options as far as what type of mounting boss you want it to be. You can have it just be a plain cylinder that just has a diameter and it's solid all the way through. You can have it so that it has mounting holes, so you set the hole diameter and the depth. You can also have it so it has stiffening ribs. You can tell it how many you want, the offset, the grade, the extent, taper, thickness. You can add draft, and you can also add rounds and fillets, and you can do any combination of these. What we want to do is we saved one of our settings for this Lunchbyte session, and what you can do if you use a certain mounting boss a lot, go in, enter all your information, and then save it. That way you can get back to it later. So we're going to go ahead and hit OK for this mounting boss, and you'll notice how now our icon has changed. It shows us that there's a hole in the center, and there are also 4 I can't think of what they're called, stiffening ribs out on the side. So we're going to go ahead and place 2 of these. We'll click to place one. It lets you go ahead and place the other one. We'll place those 2. We'll come in and we'll go ahead and dimension where we want them to be. So we'll go ahead and set that dimension. Then we'll go ahead and close our sketch. And now you pick which direction you want them to go. Obviously, we want them to go down into our part. So we'll go ahead and place them. You'll see, just like that, it adds the mounting boss with the hole and the stiffening ribs. The next thing we want to look at is the rib command. So first, what we'll do is we'll just create a sketch, and we'll go ahead and set it the same height as the ribs, or sorry, the mounting bosses. And we'll just go ahead and create a rib that goes from here down to here. So all we're going to do is just create the line, and then we'll thicken that line to create our rib. So we'll go ahead and hit finish. And to get to a rib, you just go into the web network command, and we'll just pick this line that we created. We'll accept that. We'll go ahead and tell it to go down. And we have the option set to extend the profile and to extend to next. And we'll go into more detail about those in the next part that we look at. But for this, we'll just go ahead and put the rib down into the part. You'll see just like that, it adds it, and it even contours to the blends that were already in the part. So now we'll go ahead and move on to the next part we want to look at, and that's this cover. So we just have a solid part here. So the first thing we need to do is we need to use the thin wall command to cut out all this material on the inside. So we'll just go ahead and go into thin wall. We'll type in our thickness, which we want to be 5 millimeters, and then we'll select the face that we want to be open now. We'll go ahead, we'll accept that. We'll preview it, make sure it's what we want, hit finish, and just like that, it hollows out all that material. So the first thing we're going to look at is the vent command. So we already have a sketch in here called our vent sketch. We'll go ahead and turn that on. And all of these commands are under the thin wall drop down. So we'll go back into that and we'll come to vent. And this brings us into our options. So like most of these features, you've got a nice diagram over here to tell you what each of these things means. So we have the blue lines, which represent the ribs, which go, in this case, across, and the spars, which go vertical. So for this, we want to just have the thickness and the depth be the same. And we're not going to worry about extension or offset. And we're not going to worry about the draft angle either. And just like with the mounting boss and holes, you can obviously save all these settings if you have a certain setup that you use a lot. So we'll go ahead and hit OK. The first step when you do the vent is to select the outside edge of the vent. So we'll just go ahead and select that. And now we need to select our ribs. But in our case, the ribs are the vertical ones, which shows you there. So we'll go ahead and select all of those. And then we'll accept that. And now we'll go ahead and pick the spars, which are the horizontal ones. Once we have all this selected, we'll accept that. And we'll go ahead and set it to through next. You obviously can set it to through all or just a finite extent depending on what kind of part you're dealing with. And it'll go ahead and put that through our part. And we'll just double check, make sure it's what we want. We'll hit finish. And so you'll see how our thickness of the ribs and the spars are just the same way with the rib command. It just took this line and offset it so that the thickness was, in our case, 5 millimeters. So now that we have the vent through our part, we'll go ahead and turn off the vent sketch. And now we'll look at the web network. So we'll turn on our rib network sketch. We'll come back under thin wall, and we'll go into our web network. So for this, we want to set it to single. That way we can just window select all three of these lines and go ahead and hit accept. So for this, we're going to go ahead and leave the thickness at 5, and we'll go ahead and look at the options. So first, you'll note we have extend profile and extend to next. So I'll go ahead and place that. What the extend profile does, you'll notice that our lines don't go all the way to the edge of the part. So extend profile is telling it, go ahead and send these lines to the edge. That way you don't have just part of it sitting out in the middle. And with thickness, or the depth, that just sends it all the way down to the bottom of the part, wherever that is. So if we go back into our options, we can set it to no extend, and if we do that and leave the extend to next, it'll still go ahead and put it all the way through the bottom, but you'll notice this time it only is where the sketch was, so it doesn't extend that out to the edge. We can also turn on the depth, and for that we need to go ahead and extend the profile, and if we do that, it extends it, but it doesn't now go all the way down to the bottom of the part. So those are how the options in the web network work. So we'll go ahead and reset that back to what we want, create our network, and hit finish. And now that we have that on one side, we need to put it on the other side. So for that, we can just go ahead and mirror it just like we would any other feature. We'll select our feature, select the plane that we want to mirror it about, and then it'll put it on the other side of our part. So the last thing we want to look at for this part is the lip command. So if we go in here to lip, then what we want to do is select the edge that we want to use. We'll accept that. And now we set the width and the height. And now when you do this, you want to pay attention to where this box comes up, and you're going to want to zoom in so that you know exactly what it is your lip is doing. So you've got a few different options. What we want to do is we want to take this down into the inside so that it cuts out a lip on the inside of this part. So you notice we just oriented our rectangle to where we wanted it, and it went ahead and cut that out around the entire part. We'll go back in and look at what some of the other directions do. With the lip, if it's into material, it'll cut out material. If there's no material there, it will add it. So if I have this pointed out, you'll notice it adds a lip around this where now there's an overhang. Same thing if I go back. Obviously I can't set it in this way because it would then be as wide as our part is. But if I set it up, then it'll kind of do the opposite of what we were trying to do. It'll add material up above on that edge. So we'll just go ahead and set it back to what we want so it goes and cuts that lip out on the inside edge. So now we'll go into this assembly, which is the seat for the Iron Eagle, which you guys have probably seen in some of our other demonstrations. So what we're going to do is just edit into the seat itself, and we're going to go ahead and put a web network on the back and the bottom to strengthen this seat. So what we're going to do is come in here and turn on the seat web sketch, and you'll notice that this time we're in the synchronous environment. So in synchronous, you don't, oh sorry, I'm not actually in synchronous. In the synchronous environment, you don't get the mounting boss command. That's only in ordered. So we're going to go into web network again, and this time we'll go ahead and set it to single. We'll window select all these lines. We'll accept it, and you'll notice that now the dialog's a little different. Instead of having the 4 options for extend and the depth, we now have the extend and the extend the depth both automatically turned on, so that it will extend your web all the way to the edge of the part and will put it all the way to the bottom. And instead of entering the depth up in the bar, or sorry, the thickness up in the bar, we enter it in the box that shows up here. So for this, we want to go ahead and make it 8, and we want to go ahead and add, sorry, I needed to add draft to it. So we'll just go back in to edit it. We'll just go ahead and undo it. So we'll go back into our web network. We'll do select all. Set it 8, so we'll go ahead and add the draft to it, and we just want to do 5 degrees. One of the new tools with the synchronous web network is that you can dimension the midpoint of the individual ribs. So if we go into distance between, and we're just going to set this to only midpoint, and you'll see as I hover over it, it picks up on the midpoint there at the edge. So we'll go ahead and select that midpoint and this midpoint. And it looks like the plane that our dimensions was locked to was a plane other than one of the base reference planes. So I just locked it back to the base reference plane that's on the plane at the bottom of the seat. So we'll go ahead and we'll place that dimension there, and then we'll go ahead and continue and place another one here. So we'll go ahead and go into this dimension, and we'll go ahead and change it so that it's 95 millimeters. You'll see it moves it, and it moves all the other sections of it too, because it knows that this is one continuous line. We'll go ahead and come into this one as well and make that 95. You'll see it moves all those together. The next thing we want to do is come into this face, and we're going to grab our steering wheel and move it up to this edge, and we're going to go ahead and push these out 12 millimeters. And you'll notice because of the symmetry, it moved the other side as well. Now what we want to do is rotate them, so we're just going to reorient our steering wheel here. We'll grab that, and we'll rotate them in -6 degrees. You'll see the new Live Rules solution tool pops up. We'll go ahead and accept it. So that's kind of how we want the bottom positioned. But we have a sensor in the rest of the assembly that we want to line up with this part of the web. So if we look, we can see that it's not lined up in the center of that, which is where we need it to be so that it can tell when there's someone sitting on the seat. So all we have to do is click the inside edge and one of the outside edges. If I can actually click on the outside edge, we'll reorient our steering wheel, and we'll go ahead and position it. We'll pick up on the edge of the sensor and just go ahead and reposition that part of our web network. So just like that, you can kind of move these webs around to get what you actually need. So we'll go ahead and go and hide the previous level again. And what we're going to do is come in here to the back now, and we'll add another web network. So you'll notice that this time our sketch is just on the inside, whereas on the bottom it went all the way to the outside of the part. So when we come in here and we go back into our web network command, go ahead, go back into single, and turn the bottom one off just to make it a little bit easier. go ahead and select all our lines at once. And like I said, because the extend option is turned on by default, it extended all of these out to the edge of the part so that we don't just have a small network on the inside. So the same as we did on the bottom, we'll go ahead and add 5 degrees of draft. And then we'll come in, we'll turn off our sketch again. We'll go ahead and dimension, just to make it easier, set the midpoint. And we'll go from those two. And just like what happened earlier, our dimension was set to be on the base reference plane. So all we have to do is change our dimension plane, and we'll change it to the back of the seat so that now we get the same distance as it was on the bottom, which is the 85. We'll go ahead and place the other one to this rib. And just like we did before, we'll go ahead and change these dimensions. Make sure they're going the right way. So that's pretty much all we have for you today. I want to thank you guys for your time. If you have any questions or suggestions for future topics that you would like to see, here is our contact information. As with all of our Lunch Bytes, the replays of this session and all our previous sessions are available on our website. So if you just go to our website, there's a drop down for our Lunch Bytes. If you have a smartphone, you can scan the little picture down here in the corner, and that'll take you to our website where you can find the replays. Once again, thank you guys for your time. If you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to let us know. Thanks.